From the space city called Houston, Texas, welcome to Spaceboy Universe Podcast, featuring Spaceboy and the lovely Surlana. So strap in and prepare for launch sequence. And remember, it's Spaceboy's Universe, and you're in it.
Good evening. Welcome. Greetings, everyone, from Spaceboy Labs. I am your host, Spaceboy, and to my immediate left is Surlana. Say hello, Surlana.
Sup?
Hey, good. How you doing?
Sup?
All right. Tonight's show is 007, a little James Bond action there, and we're going to be covering aliens and the Skinwalker Ranch. You got your notes ready?
I do. I've got one person saying they refreshed, but nothing's happened.
You might want to try to direct them if they're having some trouble with the Spaceboy Universe site to go ahead and...
This is on YouTube.
On YouTube. I'm showing live. We need to get this kind of worked out again. Do you have any sound piping on their end? It could be like a delay of some kind.
Okay.
So once again, here we go. It's our normal start the universe with...
I'm in the chat in YouTube next to the live stream, which I didn't know existed until a couple days ago.
And have you tried piping up the sound to see if we're getting some sound out of
I muted all the sounds
so
they wouldn't disturb.
And once again,
Hit
we're
F5.
going through checking the...
live stream is starting soon, and I see the thumbnail, which will take you to episode 6.
Okay, and that's not the right one.
Right.
So go ahead and go to the link to the YouTube channel.
That's where I am. The YouTube channel.
Because it looks like it's... Oh, I see. God dang it, there it goes again. When you clicked on the live 006, does it even come up?
So you may click on 006?
Yes.
Well, that goes to 6. It does say live next to it.
Can you play that?
You mean unmute?
Yeah. See if there's something coming out? Yeah, that's apparently what the deal was.
All right.
So I am making an adjustment here on the fly.
I'm live on 06. Yes, that is correct.
Let's see here. Live stream.
She says she can hear.
Okay. But for how long?
Well, this person is also drinking Baileys.
So,
I'm not, but you told me I couldn't.
That explains earlier when I was trying to do the test for... getting to find you on the thing. I couldn't find you because it was trying to do 6. You know, one of these days I'm going to get this event thing plugged in correctly.
Let's talk about that afterwards because I'm curious to know.
Yeah, so anyway, so we're live, and live shows, you know, as they say, crap happens. So, Surlana, if people want to follow us or become... I guess we're going to tell them that they can follow us on Twitter at the Spaceboy Universe, or excuse me, at the SB Universe, and they can follow us as hashtag SB Universe, and questions, if you do have questions, that's hashtag SBUQ. Now, my favorite part of the show is, hey, Surlana, if they want to become a friend of the show, what do they need to do?
Well, once again, I'm taking personal donations directly into my bank account, but I'm pretty sure it's not what you mean.
Are there other places out there in the universe that they can follow us?
Well, I'm guessing you're hinting around social media.
Well, social media does include Twitter, but do we not have a Facebook place that they can go to?
Oh, you know what? I didn't put the Facebook in my text file here.
Well, while she's trying to figure that out, yes, you can find us on Facebook. It's Spaceboy Universe for Facebook. Well, also we've added Instagram today, so we'll be pushing out pictures as the time goes on Instagram.
On Instagram, it's just all one word, Spaceboy Universe.
Awesome. Now, let's say you want to contact the show or contact one of us. It's quite simple. To contact the show in general, with general information and all that good stuff, it's contact@spaceboyuniverse.com. If you want to get a hold of me, my direct email is spaceboy@spaceboyuniverse.com. And if you want to contact Surlana about the show as far as the inner workings, or just want to contact her and say, hey, you're doing a great job over there, right? Shake your head, yeah? Anyway,
I think so. I mean, that's completely up to someone's interpretation.
She can definitely use a pick-me-up email, and you can do that through Surlana@Spaceboy Universe. Almost at the music. So much out there. Spaceboyuniverse.com. That's Surlana@Spaceboyuniverse.com.
I just typed Faceboy. Thanks for that.
So, real quick, just want to remind everybody, tonight's the big night as we go past the midnight hour at 2 a.m. to be in fact, that you're supposed to fall back an hour for your time. Now, of course, if you're in some state like Arizona that doesn't listen to the time change thing, don't worry about it.
I admire Arizona for doing that. Just let's pick a time frame and stick to it.
Well, I think at one time Texas had mentioned doing that too, but it just kind of... I don't
know why we didn't do it.
Went into the wind, but I would just love to get rid of this time thing. I know that it was during the war, that World War II, that they decided to do this time thing so that we could maximize the hours that Americans could work for the war effort, but... quite frankly, we don't need it anymore. No. I would love to just... I
want the time that lets me get home before it gets dark. Mm-hmm. Maybe that is the time we're going to... I don't know.
Yeah, I'd rather drive in kind of darkness in the morning so I don't get my eyes lasered out by the sun and have just, the afternoon drive, where I do have some, more time for the light. So that's definitely something to remind everybody that set your clocks back, fall back an hour, so that's an extra hour of sleep that Surlana will get to have. I know she's shaking her head; she doesn't believe it.
It's not enough. I mean,
it's a fantasy, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll never happen. Not with you in the room.
So get this: in the news, I was reading that there was supposed to be this big rock that looked like a skull. They were calling it, I guess, the Big Pumpkin, I guess in honor of...
What?
Yeah, I know. It was this week that, so like all these things that they are coming to Earth. Hey, by the way, we got this big rock coming. We'll see you later.
I'm confused. The Great Pumpkin's coming as an asteroid? What?
Yeah, so there was supposed to be this asteroid that was going to come by Earth about 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, but didn't hear anything else on it, so I guess we're still here, and... it didn't cause a big tsunami or anything like that, or deep impact. So,
well, we did get some crazy rain.
Oh yeah, today in Houston it was like just murder. I know the rest of Texas is soaking wet. Quite frankly, I wish we could give some of this water to California. I know y'all guys out there really need some water out there, but we
could wring out our lawn and give it to them.
It was soaking wet. The nice thing is, at least where we're at, we didn't. Although we got lots of rain. It wasn't quite the impact that, say, the rest of Texas got, like in San Antonio and Austin. I heard tornadoes touch down there. And,
they got slammed.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, I guess enough with the banner. We'll do some more talk later.
Yes.
So, we want to get right into the meat and potatoes, and we appreciate you tuning in tonight. It is October 31st. And
that one person I know that's tuned in, thank you.
Yes, we thank you. So, to start this off, I want to talk about my favorite story as a kid, and that would be the Hopkinsville, Kentucky incident, where a poor family out there in rural Kentucky were accosted by gremlin-like aliens. Now, the interesting thing about this story is that I believe that this is one of those stories where the terminology "little green men" came from.
Which is odd because they were not necessarily little green or men.
Right. Well, the aliens were about 4 feet tall, but they were more silvery in the way they looked.
But that's the 50s. That's that's the nomenclature at the time. Right. They called every alien little green men.
Interesting thing on that, Surlana, is that when you look back through history, this is not the only time in history where terminology has come up for ufology. When you go back to when Arnold, I just slipped my mind his last name, but he's the one who spotted the UFOs over Mount Rainier as one of the first UFO sightings, and he described them as saucers skipping across a lake. And
so,
so that's where we get the terminology flying saucers. So
it all starts somewhere.
It all starts somewhere, and in this case, little green men. It is where we get this from. This took place back in the 1950s, mm-hmm. and so during that time, you had a lot of things. The American culture was into the phenomenon.
It's the atomic age.
It was the atomic age. You had all these wonderful B movies that were coming out in the theater, but there were aliens and
Russians and communists and
yes,
oh my!
It was a lot of things going on during the 50s, right before the 60s came up. But I have a treat for you because I have taken the opportunity to record a little story that goes along with this. So we'll go ahead and play this, and when we come back out of it, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll talk a little bit more and possibly go into the Skinwalker Ranch, which I'm dying to hear Surlana's take on that story. So sit back for an interesting tale of the Kelly Hopkinsville Incident. Of the many cases of alien encounters, one of the most bizarre is the Kelly Hopkinsville account of a terrifying night of little green men. This most unusual event originated on the night of August 21st, 1955. Located in a rural area of Christian County, Kentucky, this UFO enigma took place in a little town of Kelly, located near a small city of Hopkinsville. The Sutton family would be the target of this one-of-a-kind journey into the unknown. The lifestyle of the typical Kentucky rural family has been kept intact for many decades, and the Sutton family fit this tradition to a T. Lucky Sutton, as he was known to his friends and neighbors, was the patriarch of this bluegrass clan. Visiting Lucky and the family was a man from Pennsylvania named Billy Ray Taylor. On that night, Billy left the Sutton house to go get some water from the family well. At the well, he saw an immense shining object land in a small gully about a quarter-mile away. Running back to the house, he excitedly reported the sighting to the others in the house. Billy was laughed at. No one believed his crazy tale. After a short time, the family dog became irritable and started to raise a ruckus outside. As the custom in those parts, Lucky and Billy grabbed their guns and headed outside, planning to shoot first and ask questions later. When they arrived outside, only a short distance from the front door, both men stopped dead in their tracks by the side of a 4-foot-tall creature who was walking towards them with its hands up as if to surrender. The most bizarre creature would be described as having large eyes, a large mouth, large ears, thin short legs, and hands ending in claws. Frightened by this small goblin-like entity, Billy Ray fired a shot with his .22 and Lucky unloaded with his shotgun. Both men admitted later that there was no way they could have missed that creature at close range, but the little being just did a backflip and ran into the darkness of the woods. No sooner than the men re-entered the house before the creature, or another one like it, appeared in the window. They took a shot at him, leaving a blast hole through the screen. They ran back outside to see if the creature was dead, but they found no trace of it. Standing on the front porch of the house, the men were terrified by a claw that tried to reach down and pull one of them up. Again they shot, but the being just simply floated to the ground and scurried off into the darkness of the woods. The two men sought protection of the house, only to find themselves under siege from these little men. For a time, the entity seemed to tease the family, appearing from one window to another. Taking pot shots through the windows and the walls, their weapons seemed to be totally ineffective against these beings. After several hours of fear, the Sutton family decided to make a break from the house. Family members took 2 vehicles to the police station in Hopkinsville. and reported their strange tale to Sheriff Russell Greenwell. Finally, persuading the policeman that they were not joking, the authorities agreed to visit the Sutton house. Arriving at the farm, police found no traces of the creatures, but they did find numerous bullet and rifle holes in the windows and the walls. Greenwell was in charge of several officers at the scene and reported that the Suttons seemed sober and were generally frightened by something. Neighbors in the area were questioned to see whether they had heard or seen anything. They reported that they had seen strange lights in the sky and also heard the gunfire off in the distance. Exhausting all efforts to find the origin of this strange report, the police left the Sutton place at 2:15 a.m. As soon as they did, the creatures made their return. They began peeking in the window, seemingly out of curiosity. More gunfire took place, but again without any effect. Several more hours of antics followed, finally stopping just before daybreak. The police were finally persuaded to call in the Air Force personnel the next morning, but a new search brought no results. After the beings had left, Billy Ray and Lucky had gone to Evansville, Indiana to take care of some business. The other 5 family members were questioned by the Air Force and the police. On August 22, 1955, the Kentucky New Era newspaper carried the story of the events. Naturally, the initial public opinion was that the whole story was a hoax. If this was the case, several questions must be answered. Why would the Sutton family make up such an incredible claim? They made no money from the story and did not seek any publicity. Why would they shoot holes in the walls of their home, causing financial drain on the family to repair the damages? Including Billy Ray and Lucky, 7 adults were there to witness the events. All of them, when questioned separately, gave the same story. Also, sketches were made of the beings, and they depicted the creatures in a like manner. A year after the events, the case was thoroughly investigated by Isabel Davis. The witnesses' stories had not changed. As the years rolled by, the accounts of the Sutton family stood firm. No evidence of this hoax has ever been brought forward. What a story. And when we return, we'll be talking a little bit more about that and the Skinwalker Ranch. Stay tight, it's a short break, but we will be right back for more October 31st broadcast.
What's the matter? Can't sleep? Did you hear that? What's that in the shadow in the corner? Is it moving? Is it someone? Is it something watching you? We'll chase away the boogeyman with Spaceboy Universe.
Right out of the fog, right out of the mist, rise the robots, they do exist.
Call in and talk live. Dial 713-701-5214. You're listening to Spaceboy Universe. And here's your host, Spaceboy and Surlana.
Right out of the fog.
Well,
right
I really, it's quite an interesting story because when I was a young man, many light years ago, that was one of the stories I got in a book that they used to do for school drive for Scholastic, that you could pick all these books off and choose a story. And, like I've explained before, I picked books like Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster. And there was this one book I got in pertaining to UFO stories. And that particular story of the Kelly Hopkinsville incident was in there. And I remember that it freaked me out as a kid. Mm-hmm. Now,
how old? Do you remember?
I must have been about 7.
Yeah, I can see how that would.
Back in the 70s. Now, that's also the same time period that you have, like, Travis Walton's story coming out. As a kid, I remember seeing that. And I've had discussions with you on this subject before, where I guess it was that time in my life. And then you had the movie Close Encounters. You know, I went to go see that. So I don't mind saying that there are times when it's hard to listen to say, to like when we listen to Jimmy and there's movies about, it's about the alien hunter, you know, or talking about the Travis Walton story, that it just gives me a little panic attack.
For those who don't know the Travis Walton story, if you've ever seen the movie The Fire in the Sky, that was loosely based on his experience. They had a kid from E.T. in it. He was more grown up by then.
Mm-hmm. So basically it was one of those stories that you know, pretty much freaked me out as a kid. And so to this very day, it's one of my top favorite UFO stories that I like to, you know, go over every once in a while.
And we watched a video, you know, doing a little research. You and I watched a video on it. It was a reenactment. It's pretty crazy. And the things I saw about it, which kind of just like made me go, whatever, is one of the explanations they were trying to find, what could this be other than the crazy explanation that happened. One of them suggested it was might be the great horned owl, and they showed a picture of the owl because the owl has those ears. They said this creature had like strange, wide, bat-like ears, and you saw a picture of that, and I saw a picture of the owl. I'm like, these do not look anything like each other.
Well, to tap into what you're just saying there, you have the gentleman who opened up fire on the beans. You would imagine once the police came out there, they would have found evidence of feathers blown everywhere because of this.
Owls do not glow silver.
Yes.
In the dark, much as I think that would be cool for the owl's PR to do that. So,
and to my knowledge, owls don't have. Well, I guess they have. Do they have talons? I guess they do.
Yes, they're big ones.
Yeah,
really
but they don't have claws like a hand situation, right? They
not like was described by the people.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Really, but these were like really long. They said longer than our fingers.
Right. And the way when I look at the pictures and it was described further that they look a lot like goblins. To be honest with you, they don't look like the typical grays.
Yeah, they call them that.
They don't look like the typical grays that we've seen with the black.
These are very unusual,
and
I've never heard anyone describe an extraterrestrial like this, like in this case.
A one of a kind.
But then I've not heard them all.
Right. Out of the many stories I've read, this is one of those unique cases where the aliens described were not your typical aliens that we've seen. They were not
and
reptilian. They were not the grays, the tall ones, the mantis. You know, the different various of races that you do hear.
And they verified that the family, nobody in the family was drinking or partaking of any illicit substances.
They were quite sober. Yeah.
They were all, in charge of their faculties. It was men, women, children. So it wasn't just a bunch of uneducated people.
Well, at least they had the common sense at some point to say, let's get the heck out of here.
Yeah, let's get the cops out of here.
I mean, they literally loaded up 2 cars to get out of there. What I find crazy is they get to the police station and they, beg them to come back, and they do, and they start checking around, and there's nothing to be seen. Nothing's going on.
It's like these little critters knew, and they're like, well, let's just wait for everybody to calm down, and then they came back.
Mm-hmm. So, and it's also interesting to note that that these families all described these beings and sketched out the beings, and
they were very consistent.
Yes.
They showed the sketches, and they were almost dead on with each other.
That's another thing I like about the story is that you have a whole
good
family,
cooperation,
good cooperation, and the fact that the consistency over the years of what has been reported from the family members have never changed. They've never faltered in their description or the experience of the thing that happened that night. And and then
what got me is this is where maybe the first instance where the media gets a hold of it, and the first thing they do is they start getting the facts wrong.
Right.
Little green men. Of course, that, like you said, that was prevalent during the 50s. Everything. It was an alien. It was little green men from Mars. Because, aliens could only be from Mars.
And they could only be green.
They could only conceive of that type of thing. But but they also got a lot of the details wrong about how many shots were fired, what they were fired, what kind of weapons they used. Just every little detail somehow gets messed up. But that happens even today. unfortunately.
Another thing I found interesting in the story is that when they talk about shooting the aliens, it was like shooting a tin
bucket.
Tin bucket, yes.
It like pinged and ricocheted and smelled metallic-y sound.
Right, and I do believe that at some point later on, they did find some evidence of some green glowing substances, but unfortunately, by daybreak or the next day, it had just disappeared altogether. So, no telling. Now, I did go on to watch a video in reference to this, and I believe it was one of the Suttons took one of the eldest boys, and they went to the gully where supposedly the ship landed, and they were able to find spots where depressions in the land where the UFO landed. So I found that interesting because that initially was not told in the initial stories that I had read.
And the daughter and the son still retell a story. Like, I guess they go to conferences and recount the story that their father told them, which they didn't learn until way later in their lives, they said. Right.
They tell the story just like when I have seen Travis Walton as recent as Contact in the Desert of this year, where his story doesn't falter in any way. And it's that kind of story, when you listen, that you expect some kind of deviation in the storytelling, but it's pretty solid what they're conveying. So, like I said, it's one of my most interesting stories I read, and I'm glad that I could share it with the audience tonight. So, with that said, well, what do we have coming up next?
I feel like I've got too much to cover because this story has a lot going on. It's probably, if you have a checklist for paranormal / alien events, this one has it all.
It's a story that I have to take point on. This one is that I was listening to Coast AM, and George Knapp was, I guess, pushing this book called The Skinwalkers, the Skinwalker Ranch,
which I am holding in my hands right now.
Indeed, she does, with a pen and a yellow fluorescent marker somewhere around here. But the story of this ranch is so interesting, so involved, and so many things that have happened.
Took place over many years.
And it goes from being part of the paranormal to a rich businessman coming in and buying the property and all that good stuff. But I can't give it really much justice, so I'm going to hand it off to Surlana to start it up, and at some point we'll take a break, and we'll continue on. So, Surlana, what? She's excited over there just to talk about this story. She's got tears coming out of her eyes.
No, I'm giving him some hand gestures, not rude ones. I'm just trying to communicate with him non-verbally. Anyway, you want to just get into it?
Yeah,
sure.
I can't wait to hear what you've got to say. Wait, before you do, there's nothing that makes me more happier than when Surlana reads a book and then she conveys the story to me, and
I explain it to him so he doesn't have to read it.
She has quite the storytelling abilities, and I think she uses her degree to such a degree that it makes me happy.
If you're done buttering me up,
okay,
we'll get on with it.
Right.
Actually, I feel bad that I'm just retelling this story that probably everybody knows. It's on other podcasts. It's been well covered on, like you said, on Coast to Coast. But, if this is supposed to be Halloween, supposed to tell a story, I don't have any personal stories. I've never had a spooky experience that happened to me. I've had a very sheltered life, which has been a good life, but nothing really remotely interesting happens to me, unfortunately. So,
what about when you married Spaceboy?
We're going to get into that because let me tell you how this ties into why I picked this story. Okay, I moved to Texas in 2004, and there's more to this story. Mm-hmm. But you said we'll save that for the end. That's our personal horror story, maybe at the end.
Your personal connection to the actual Skinwalker story.
Well, it's a peripheral. It's like you know how people say this play is off Broadway. It's kind of like that. So when I moved to Texas in the fall of 2004, I was just trying to get a job, any job, to establish some recent work history. So I did temp jobs, and one of the do anything for money temp jobs I did was, going to this place and cleaning up around this office and cleaning the, restrooms and outside and everything. And this was down in way South Houston, not how far. How many miles would you say it's from Johnson Space Center? 10?
About 10, 11 miles. Very easy commute.
Yeah, not where we're living now, but that's where I picked to live. So I had met, as you call him, Spaceboy by then, and we were dating. So I started to work at this place called Bigelow Industries and did this little temp job. And then when I told you about it, you said, hey, is that the same guy? Is that Robert Bigelow's company that sent this research about this ranch? I said, what ranch are you talking about? So he told me about Skinwalker Ranch. And he had the book, or he bought the book, and which is co-authored by Colum Kelleher and George Knapp. And it's The Hunt for the Skinwalker. So I read it, and I was like, this reads like H.P. Lovecraft, but modern. So I picked that, and I'll just kind of briefly run through the major things that I personally found freaky, and then I would like to read you a particularly brief excerpt that I found crazy.
Before you get involved in that,
sure.
Do you want to take a quick break and then we'll go down?
Sure, I kept wondering when you were going to do that because I didn't want to go too far.
Yeah, we're close to the bottom of an hour. We'll go ahead and take a break while Surlana refreshes her palate with a quick drink and
sports drink.
Yeah, sports drink. So we'll be right back. I promise that the commercials are short and sweet, but it won't take long. So enjoy, and we'll see you on the other end.
You're listening to Spaceboy Universe, the #1 broadcast for robots.
Oh no! Got invited to that baby shower at the last minute? Why not give that expected mom the gift of Spaceboy's latest release, digital on spaceboymusic.com.
To call in and talk live, dial 713-701-5214. You're listening to Spaceboy Universe, and here's your host, Spaceboy and Surlana.
All right. See? Short and sweet and to the point. I love it. So we were talking right before the break about Skinwalker, and Surlana has made a list, checked it twice, and
I have extensive notes.
And she's got extensive notes, and that is one of the many reasons I love this gal. She knows her research, and people know it.
What an odd reason to love someone.
Well, it's just one of many because, without you...
I'd like to discuss that later with you because it's the first I'm hearing of it.
Well, I don't try to boost your ego because, there's only room for...
I don't have the issue with ego that you do with, like, the head exploding and the obsessive behavior.
I know. It's a big universe, and I've got to fill it with my ego, so... But
I know, and that's why I'm trapped in it. So
with that said, All
right, let's get into it.
Get into it.
What is the Skinwalker Ranch? I know there's at least one person listening that may not be as familiar as these hardcore people we know. So, Skinwalker Ranch is a nickname given to this property located in a rural area of northeastern Utah, which is about 150 miles from Salt Lake City. This ranch, notably, is surrounded by the Ute Native American Reservation. Now, the Utes have this idea of a skinwalker, which is like a witch or an evil entity that these natives believe walks the land because a curse was placed on them by the Apaches. So supposedly this ranch is in the path of the skinwalker, and you get all these insane events happening. So the activity on this property is well documented by the people who live there, and then later by the team who came in strictly to research it, but they don't have any hardcore evidence, but not for the lack of trying, because this phenomenon is sentient and seems to be very well observant of humans and what they're trying to do, so they don't get the evidence. So the name of the family that lived there is the Gormans. That's not their real name, but you can find out what their real name is very easily if you just start looking into this, because this was in the news and it's documented. But the things got so bad at one point, they had to leave for their sanity and for financial reasons, because this activity was hurting their cattle, and that is where the bread and butter was. That's the whole reason there was to ranch. So, as I said before, this is a famous case, and it reads like a checklist for all things paranormal extraterrestrial, such as, here's my bullet point list, and I'm going to try not to sound like Stefan from SNL, like, this ranch has everything. So, because it's supposed to be taken seriously. So,
it has curtains.
And
it's got
Dan Cortez.
Dan Cortez.
Now you're going to get me coughing.
Sorry, please continue.
It's got bizarre-looking animals, strange beings, stealth aircraft / UFOs, unseen or invisible entities, disappearing ranch animals, mutilated cattle, strange lights, sentient orbs, poltergeist activity, mysterious holes in the ground, underground noises and tremors, disembodied voices, and psychological stress and violent nightmares experienced by the people who live there. So,
ooh.
When they first got there, the Gormans, and this was in the mid-90s, this is probably about 94 through 97, when they got the property, the previous owners made them promise that they would not dig anywhere on the property, which they thought was odd, and then they later find out digging stirs things up, as far as this phenomenon goes.
Right.
So, the second disturbing aspect about this is, the house for the ranch was dilapidated and had been abandoned for a while. So they go inside and they look, and on the inside doors of the house, there are bolts on the inside, and there are bolts on cabinet doors, which is very freaky. Later, they found out why. Now, this story, when Kelleher or Knapp starts to recount it, or anyone else, any other podcast of his, they always start with a bulletproof wolf. So I'm just going to kind of gloss over that, because I found some other things more interesting. But this is the strange thing about this is they were the wife, Mrs. Gorman, was coming into the ranch one day, and she has to get out of the car, open the gate, and then, close the gate, get back in the car. And that's when she first saw it. And this thing was as tall. Its back was the same height as the top of her car. Later, they see this wolf creature, and they're outside. They're over there by one of the pens that have the cattle, because they just offloaded some cattle and some calves. So this thing just strolls up on them all casual like, just trots up to them, lets them pet it like a domesticated dog. And they're like, this is pretty strange, but let us pet it. And then it very casually trots over to the pen where a poor little calf had its little nose sticking out between, the slats, grabs the calf by the nose and tries to yank it through this fence. Well, this is where the bulletproof comes in. Mr. Gorman shot this thing point blank with a .357 Magnum, didn't phase it, didn't stress it out. There was no blood, no bullet holes, nothing. So he goes and has someone get him a hunting rifle, and they point out that Mr. Gorman is a big game hunter. He's not just shooting blindly in the wind. He's shooting at point blank. So this thing finally lets go, but strolls off very casually. It's not hurt. It's not bleeding. And they track it all the way through some mud, and they go through the mud, and they see its tracks just stop as if it vanished into thin air. The tracks don't go one way or the other. So they always start with that story. But here's the one I like, is about the different craft, the stealth craft, because there's all kinds of UFOs. It's some of the ones we've always heard about, the classic triangle shapes. And the thing they all share is they're all completely silent. But then you have the classic saucers. Then they mentioned there was some that were sombrero shaped. But the one that captured my attention is the one that was the size of a refrigerator. And they saw it on their property, and they mistook it for an RV, a recreational video. So they walked over to tell the people, okay, what are you doing on our property? This is private property. You need to move along. And as they approached it, it started to move. It kind of just silently went forward. And they had to crawl over a fence to get on with getting toward it. And so as they crawl over the fence, they said there's a red light on the front and a white light on the back, or vice versa. It just started lifting up off the ground, and it just floated away.
Did it disappear or just fade or what?
I think it just kept on going until they couldn't see anymore. But these were, so to me, these weren't just unidentified flying objects. To me, these were unusual flying objects, and they didn't always come from the sky. The Gormans report they would see holes open up in the ground, and orange orbs would fly out of the ground. And that's what intrigues me, is because they're not supposed to dig. And they would experience tremors, the ground shaking. They could hear what sounded like large machinery underground going on.
So who was saying that they were not allowed to dig or they couldn't dig?
The previous owners, when they sold the property.
So they said, so when they sold the property, I mean, why would anyone say, sure, we won't dig? But I mean, if you bought the property. Because
there's three things that the Gormans and later the NIDS team found out. If you dig, start a fire, or make loud noises, that would stir up activity. So, but what intrigues me the most is the blue orbs. They saw all kind of lights and orange orbs, but the blue orbs seem the most sinister. These were the ones that finally convinced them to leave, because this is a story about where they're messing with the horses. These orbs are flying around their heads, and with the cattle, and parting the cattle like, like the sea. And this is the ones where he lets his 3 hunting dogs go chase it, and they go chase it where he can't find it. And then he hears these terrible screams from the dogs, and they go silent.
Yeah, I remember that. So
that's the famous one, and he goes back and sees this dried up black vegetation the next day where maybe 3 dogs should have been. And he said, that's it, we're gone. But here's a quote that I read. The Gormans say the blue spheres seemed to generate severe psychological effects on the family. The family members felt waves of fear roll over them, far in excess of what might be normal whenever the blue orbs appeared. They would, like I said, they bothered the cattle. Other strange creatures would mess with horses. They said the features of these blue orbs were strange because you could see inside them, and it was like this different colors of blue swirling around, and it had sort of a crackling, static electricity noise around it.
In your research, did you find that there was any other strange beings, or
they had?
I mean, it is like skinwalkers,
kind of strange tall beings, and there's an excerpt that covers something like that. I'll read you in a minute. They had a blurry haze that would come out, and I guess like a Bigfoot type creature. They had strange birds, like almost like parrots and whatnot, just jungle looking birds that they had no business in Utah.
Right.
It just, every kind of weirdness. In the wolf, they were likening it to dire wolves. There was a creature that was messing with the horses that had sort of a hyena-like back to it, but it was covered in curly red hair, but very long legs.
I know it's been a while since I read the book, but
me too.
I tend to recall something like a Bigfoot type entity that they saw on the ranch.
Yeah, that was there too. I didn't read as much about that because I don't know that it had much of an effect as these things. But George Knapp said all of the stories that he'd heard so far, none of those really bothered him except this stuff. It was the little things that happened inside the ranch house that were poltergeist activity that bothered him. He recounts this one incident where Mrs. Gorman, she would come home, she's got all the groceries and all the bags, and she sets them down. She takes all the groceries, puts them all away in the cabinet, kicks the ones that go in the fridge, freezer, puts them all away, takes all the bags, puts them away or throws them away, goes down the hall, maybe she goes to the restroom, comes back into the kitchen, everything is back in all the bags on the table the same way she brought them in, repacked. And another incident she reports is she was home at night, she was asleep, and I don't think Mr. Gorman was there. So she wakes up out of sleep in her bed, and she sees what looks like is being projected in her room, a man in a military uniform wearing some kind of mask. I don't know if it's surgical or I don't know what's protective or what. And he's watching her, and he goes and sits down at a desk she can see and starts to write something in a book while looking up and watching her every few seconds. And she was freaked out. It was like seeing either into another dimension or a place in time that already happened or was going to happen. So she called wherever her husband was. She's like, get home now.
Did they ever claim to have missing time?
Yes. They did report missing time. In fact, they started sleeping all together in one room, like a living room, just for safety, like safety in numbers. They did report missing time and strange dreams. But that's the interesting thing about this phenomenon. In all the recountings and in the book, they themselves were never physically harmed that they could tell or remember. It's as if this phenomenon knew there was a line you don't cross. You don't hurt the humans, but everything else was fair game. So I don't know if that was necessarily true, but her incidents in the bedroom also suggest there was some kind of interdimensional activity. There's a hypotheses of a Stargate on the property.
Yeah, because I remember reading about portals and opening up, and I found that interesting. Now, what about the technical thing? I mean, I in my mind, I've always thought about, well, if you could put one camera aimed at another camera to try to catch
so
what
the
was going
NIDS
on.
team, so they finally had met their breaking point with the orbs, and the fact that some of their prize steer that they've been banking on got transported and stuck inside this little tiny trailer that you would not take these giant steer and try to put them all in. They're not all supposed to go in there, and they were crammed in there in a trance. And when they went over there to see if they were okay to get them out, they snapped out and started trying to kick themselves, going to hurt themselves to get out. And they said, that's it. This is our money they're messing with now, so we've got to go. So he sold the ranch to Robert Bigelow. Bigelow brings in a very scientific, everybody's got good credentials or PhDs. They know the scientific method. He sets up the NIDS team. So they buy the ranch for the sole purposes of observing and putting up these camera poles and, try to have some redundancy there. Well, this thing one night tears this camera pole down, and they couldn't catch all of it with the other camera.
Right.
So this phenomenon knows how to hide itself when it wants to.
What I found interesting about that is that not only the cameras were torn down, but they had put tape up there.
Yeah, duct tape, and it was all frayed and pulled apart, and the cables that went down the pole and wherever it went to were snapped and cut in half on the ground. So it wasn't just, it came loose or something. This thing was forcibly removed.
But once again, cameras were looking at cameras, but yet it did not capture anything on film. Nothing was captured on film.
Nothing. That's why we've got nothing to show for it, because this phenomenon knows what it's doing.
I tell you what, Surlana, let's go ahead and take another break.
Okay.
And when we return,
there's more.
We will have more Skinwalker Ranch. So keep yourself planted, take a drink, and you know what I mean, Gene. We'll be right back.
Are you feeling isolated by society? Don't fit in well at parties? Fellas can't get the attention of a girl? Ladies feeling self-conscious about your looks? Well, congratulations. You've made an important decision to change your life today. SpaceboyMusic.com has affordable music to help you feel confident, well-adjusted, and important. Choose from 18 albums worth of uplifting and inspirational music. Go to SpaceboyMusic.com now.
To call in and talk live, dial 713-701-5214. You're listening to Spaceboy Universe, and here's your host, Spaceboy and Surlana.
That is the magic number that is going to be opened up a little bit later here, and that is 713-701-5214. What is it, Surlana?
713-701-5214.
That is absolutely right. That number is your key to call into the Spaceboy universe, and we'll do that in just a minute. But let's continue on with this interesting, involving conversation that we're having with Surlana.
Well, like I said, there's so much here. And it's been well covered on other shows and podcasts. My suggestion is get the book, The Hunt for the Skinwalker. If you're really interested and you like creepy stories, if you liked H.P. Lovecraft, or if you don't, go read him too, because it's perfect for this time of year. So one of the things that the Gormans pointed out to the NIDS team, and rather George Knapp pointed out, is this phenomenon fed off of fear and anxiety, which is why they started sleeping, in the same room. So when they handed the ranch off to the Bigelow's NIDS team, because Bigelow was just interested in this kind of thing, they learned that if you try to talk about it, or you mentioned Skinwalker and you're on the property, conjecturing about it, this thing would find you and single you out. And Knapp didn't really go into great detail there, but Knapp went there himself after they, sold the ranch and the NIDS team came there. Mm-hmm. They learned how to, like I said, stir up this activity. They said they learned it was if you set a fire, or if you started digging, or if you made loud noises. Well, one night they did all three. They set up an earth-moving machine, and they dug on the property. They lit a bonfire, and they had a bunch of noise. And he said, boy, did that stir things up. So, but they still couldn't capture any evidence because, again, this entity, or phenomenon rather, knows. Knapp went there himself to use himself as bait, and he stayed out all night. Mm-hmm. Just for the purposes of witnessing. And he said he and Bigelow were the only two people who never got to witness anything when they went there, because this phenomenon seemed to know, oh, well, here's two important people, let's not do anything. So it knows when somebody's there to get evidence. But now the NIDS team that stayed there for a few years, they did have experiences, but they did report there was no pattern to these events. There was like, on this night this would start and then this would start. It was just random craziness at random times. And this phenomenon always outguessed them. One story I found on a website, and I can't verify if this is true because this is being told on a separate website. It's not in the book. It's not officially associated.
It's being heard from their twice-removed distant roommate's cousin.
Well, it's someone that says they were doing kind of like intern work because they'd heard about the ranch and the phenomenon, and they just thought it was cool, and they wanted to experience it while the NIDS team was still there. So this person chose the jobs because they wanted to see something strange. And, of course, they stayed there and worked on the ranch so long, never saw anything. And this person's job was to help take care of the dogs and get them in the kennel at night. So he followed standard procedure one night. He got the dogs put up in the kennel, and he comes into the NIDS trailer, and the procedure is you put the key to the kennels on the desk. He did that. So after he did that, they saw a bright light start shining into the kennels. Finally, something happened for this person. So he and a NIDS team member ran outside to this light, and the light came over them. Now, the other NIDS team member was frozen in place. He couldn't move, or he wouldn't move, and he was not making a sound. And they don't know for how long this happened, but when the light moved on, the team member was really shaken. He turned around and talked to this intern, and he said, they were communicating with me. He said these others spoke to him and said, they were here doing the same thing the NIDS research team was doing. They're doing experiments and research, but they have the upper hand, and they wanted NIDS to know that.
They didn't elaborate anything beyond that, or?
No, they didn't. And this is, like I said, it's not like a verified story, but it's maybe a possible explanation. And George Knapp he brings up a good point. If we could know the real truth behind what was going on at the Skinwalker Ranch, are we even ready for that? Do we really want to know? I mean, so these events, this phenomenon is not limited to this property. All the neighbors nearby and in this area have experienced similar things. Mm-hmm. But, so, to give you an update, the halcyon days of high strangeness seem to have rolled to pretty much a stop. Since the NIDS team left, the activity, they said, has calmed down considerably. I guess maybe because it has no one to perform for.
Probably.
It's nowhere near as active as it was in the 90s. So I watched, on YouTube, I watched George Knapp give one of his lectures at the UPAR event. And he said there were some stories that he did not put in the book, and I'm guessing they were too insane.
Well, you do have one that I couldn't, I said, what? Yes,
he said this. I'm guessing maybe he's worried it would damage credibility of the book and the other people. But so he said that the Ute Native American have their own police force, and they were patrolling at night. So these two Ute policemen were patrolling at night, and they're driving down a road, and up ahead they see two figures in the distance walking to what they assume were human males. Mm-hmm. And as they got closer to them, they could see there were two people in trench coats smoking cigarettes. And as they get right up beside them, they get a good look at them, and they're two dogs wearing trench coats smoking cigarettes.
But erect.
Standing up, erect, smoking. And they turned to look at each other in the car as to say, what the F? And as they turned back to look at them, they were gone. The dogs were gone.
Wow.
And I had never heard that story.
Mm-hmm. Well, but, yeah, when I heard you tell me that, I was like, what?
I know. I was so glad I found that story. But I was going to read you an excerpt. You're talking about other types of creatures and identity. And I am reading from The Hunt for the Skinwalker by Colum A. Kelleher and George Knapp, which was copyright. It came out in, this says 2005. Yes.
And I believe the book is available on Amazon.com.
By Paraview Pocket Books, just so we get all our citations and don't get slammed for copyright.
Yes, thank you, dear.
Okay, so this is when the NIDS team was took over the ranch. Mm-hmm. This happened about 2:30 a.m. in 1997. And it points out these two men were using, at the time, which was top-of-the-line night vision binoculars. So it was supposed to be, the best of the best equipment. So they were out doing, their nightly observations, and they were maybe out on a different part of the property, mm-hmm. more removed from the ranch and the buildings and stuff like that. So this starts with two guys, and one is called Jim and one is called Mike. So here's where we start. "Hand me the camera," Jim muttered. At the same time, Mike quietly and efficiently unpacked the night vision binoculars he had just put away. Jim set up the tripod and positioned his camera, loaded with infrared film in the line, with a light that had now grown to 6 inches in diameter, so they're observing something, a light. It was still a dull yellow, but had definitely grown brighter. Carefully, Jim set the shutter to 30 seconds, reasoning that a long exposure might capture this mysterious light on the freshly loaded roll of infrared film. He was ready to pop off all 36 shots if necessary. As Mike brought the binoculars to his eyes, Jim heard the sharp sucking in of breath. Jim could see that the light was now more than a foot wide and was still growing larger. This obviously was not a reflection. The dirty yellow expanding light seemed to be positioned just above the ground, rather than directly on the ground, but Jim could not be sure. "It's a tunnel, not just a light," Mike whispered. Jim ignored his partner's growing agitation as he increased the length of the time exposures to 40, then 50 seconds. Mike was now standing up. "It's something in the tunnel," Mike said hoarsely. Jim looked carefully at the light below. It had now expanded to more than 2 feet. Something that big should definitely register on his film. Oh my God, Mike said suddenly, thoroughly frightened. There is a black creature climbing out. I see his head. Jim felt alarm. His companion was plainly bordering on panic. It has no face, Mike whispered. Oh my God, it just climbed out. So there's one of the recountings of what they saw of one of the many strange creatures, which is, again, this goes back to, this could be interdimensional, this could be a Stargate. So one website I looked at suggested, okay, what's going on here? What is this? One suggestion I read was perhaps the land itself has a hallucinogenic effect on people. But this doesn't explain the horrific mutilated animals that they found, and they did take photos of the mutilated animals. There were witnesses because they called in vets to the property to see this. So I don't see how you can all hallucinate a mutilated animal. But my own theory is, and I didn't see this movie, I had Spaceboy explain it to me because he did see it. What if this whole area, this property, is like that movie, The Cabin in the Woods? I just thought that was interesting because what if this is experiment by someone, our government, or maybe it is this alien entity that's conducting tests on us?
Which I found interesting as a theory goes, the cabin in the woods theory, as I guess we'll call it that, where people are being experimented on, but they're in that movie they're using horror, classic horror tropes, yes, and attacking.
Well, this
the
phenomenon is using the same thing. It's using fear and anxiety and stuff like that. And excuse me, had to reach over and get my notes. And speaking of horror movies, I was trying to look into, because this is Halloween. Like, I don't watch horror movies because the circus that's in my head is plenty enough freaky when I'm awake and when I'm dreaming, and there's somebody out there listening in the YouTube chat and knows exactly what I'm talking about. So I looked up on this site called filmmakeriq.com. It's like, why do people watch horror movies? Why do they like to be scared? And there was all kind of talk from starting with Aristotle to Sigmund Freud to really modern theories about why we like to be scared. And they came up with, we like tension. We like horror movies for the relevant universal fear that it brings up, and we like that sense of unrealism because some people are attracted to gore and they know it's not real, so they feel safe. And there's all these theories are incomplete. They cannot apply to every single person. So they said we see our fears, we put them into a context, and horror movies offer a safe place to explore fear. Then I was talking to you earlier in the week about, I've never been to a haunted house attraction that people set up. I'm like, dear, why do people go to these things? And you watch these things on YouTube where people are getting scared and these girls are screaming. And all it is people in a lousy costume jumping out of the dark. You know it's coming. You know it's just a person. You know it's just an actor. Why does it even register?
Well, as I tried to explain to you, it's like people... I guess they feel the need to test their mortality. They want to feel alive.
Just a person jumping out and going, argh.
Well, I mean, when I have been able to scare you, and usually it's been indirectly.
Well, you show up like Dracula. I just turn around and you're there, like you just materialize from thin air. I don't like that. I'm going to put a bell on you. Now, I had a bell on our cat, but she actually figured out how to get it off.
I tell you what, before we go down this road, let's take the last break of the evening, and then we'll open up the lines again for people to call in, and we'll talk about some other interesting factoids about yesterday's date as significant to us. So when we return, we'll be back after the break. And once again, it's a short break, so just stick with us, people. We're almost to the end where you're going to call in and have fun with us.
You're listening to Spaceboy Universe, the #1 broadcast on Omicron Persei 8.
They say in space, no one can hear you jam. But that has all changed when Spaceboy dropped his latest release digital.
Get your copy now on spaceboymusic.com. To call in and talk live, dial 713-701-5214. You're listening to Spaceboy Universe, and here's your host, Spaceboy and Surlana.
See, that wasn't so bad. Short and sweet again. And now we're about to blast open Skype for the 713-701-5214. 713-701-5214. And that's the number to call in to make connection to the universe. So, as we were talking before we had our little breaky, where were we again?
I can't type worth anything, and I'm stone cold sober. Well, shall we tell them about our own personal horror story?
Are we talking about in 04?
In 04. What happened on October 30th, 2004?
Well,
Tell your version.
There was Spaceboy, and I was, pretty much single at the time, and at the time I was like, well, I'd like to go out with somebody, and it'd be nice. So I started browsing Yahoo Personals and came across Surlana, and out of whim, I said, hey, would you like to meet up and go to dinner? And of course, we met up. We went to dinner. And here we are so many years later, and
wow, that's a bland, sanitized version.
Well, I figured you wanted to tell the story, and then I'm usually the one that chimes in, because I can, tell you what, go ahead, you tell the story.
I'm trying to tweet the number for you.
Yes, that's 713-701-5214.
Okay, there's so much more to it than that.
There always is with our stories.
There's a person, I don't know if she's still with us in YouTube chat. It's basically her fault. So I moved down to Texas, about 10 miles away from the Johnson Space Center. And she said, you need to go out on a date just to say you could do it, get it over with, move on. It's like, okay, so I got involved. This is with Yahoo Personals. It doesn't exist anymore, so started emailing this guy, or he emailed me, I don't remember what. Started chit-chatting, and this went on for a while. And then one email, I emailed him. I said, we were talking about sci-fi and sci-fi TV. And I said, yeah, I've got all of Red Dwarf on DVD. And he emailed me back, we should meet. So that's what reeled him in. So I went on a date with him, and we met at a Chinese restaurant buffet, which is not my favorite thing, but
but I love Chinese.
I like Chinese. Just the concept of buffets freak me out. Everybody's hands and everything, children sneezing on stuff. I can't stand it. Anyway, so we met at this Chinese buffet, and this was October 30th, 2004. So that's what happened yesterday. It was our anniversary, and that's why people on Facebook, my Facebook, I've been going cake. So I went and bought some cake and ice cream. So
and it was quite delicious, by the way.
So I met you there. We met separately, and we had our dinner.
And I thought, hey, what would be cool as a romantic gesture? Let's all go down to Galveston because it's just down the road from there, and we'll hop a ferry, do the ferry
there's a ferry.
ride.
Drive your car up onto the ferry boat.
And we rode the ferry. It was a cold evening.
Yeah, that was the weird thing. It was cool.
It was very
which is
cool.
odd.
Yeah,
it's not cool now.
No.
But I was kind of leery because this is a guy I don't really know. I had talked to him on the phone once, and met him from the internet. So I said, I'm okay with that, but just so you know, I can protect myself.
The reality is, she didn't say that. It wasn't until many years later that she said that she was packing heat, and she was prepared to take...
I was alone. I was a woman alone. What did you just Texas, for crying out loud. So I never expected to hear from him again. It was a good date. It was probably the only one I had. And it was fun, and if I never heard from you again, I was going to be fine.
But
little did I know,
he
called back.
Yeah, so there you go. I called back. Which then you go a year into the future from there. I mean, as far as October 30th.
Yeah, in 2005.
And
were we living together by then?
Yes, we were. So
he moved swiftly.
Yeah, so we're living together, and we go to the Hall & Oates concert downtown Houston.
Hall & Oates, we're such dorks.
And so it's October 30th, and that's when I proposed to her, and it was a wonderful evening. And then fast forward from there, we get married the next year after
2006.
And so...
Where did we get married?
We got married in Vegas. And I know you want me to tell you, it's the Star Trek Experience place that we went to, the Hilton.
Which is gone now.
Yeah,
but
it's gone. But we were married on the Enterprise D bridge with a Klingon female as our witness and a Picard look-alike for our preacher. So...
Yeah.
The funny thing is that I had just, I guess weeks and weeks before this, I said, well, why don't we get married at the Star Trek Experience, and I didn't expect her to say, sure, why not?
No, I'm pretty sure I suggested it, and you jumped on it because you thought that was cool.
No, I mean, this was definitely my
I really
idea.
think he married me just so we could get married there and say it was cool.
No, I just knew it was cool, but I didn't think she would actually... go along with it. But long story short...
I did enjoy that, though.
Yeah, we did have a good time there. I mean, it was
not the marrying part, everything else we did.
I mean, yeah, we went through the whole experience, and then what was nice about it, once we were married, the guy that was there, the kind of like the host of the place...
Yeah, the coordinator.
He was like trying to point things out for us on...
Like, we know.
Yeah, we know this, and we know that.
This is where Worf stands.
Yeah.
This is where Riker sits. This is where Beverly sits when she's on here, and this is where Troy normally sits. And because we were the last wedding of the evening, like at 6 or 7 at night, there was nobody else coming in. They were going to close. They let us run around the whole recreated bridge.
This is
Enterprise 1701D. This is TNG Enterprise. Yeah. And so...
it was an experience that will never be forgotten.
No, and never be replicated because it's gone.
Replicated? That's nice, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was our story, and we're sticking to it. So, what else?
Other than to go back to why do people go to haunted houses?
That's right.
I did a little bit more digging into it, and then I found out there are these haunted houses attractions that go way extreme. Mm-hmm. They're like living a horror movie.
Right.
And I found one that says it's a blackout, meaning there are no lights in this place, and you have to experience everything in the dark and, whatever happens to you. Then there's another one that's a blackout, but you must be naked.
Wow.
And they, of course, wherever that happened, they shut that down. They said, no, people must be wearing some clothes. And then I found one that tops all of them. I'm not even going to tell you what it is. Go figure it out. I found it all on YouTube. And this one, basically, you have to go alone. You can't go in a group. You can't go with somebody else. Or if you do, you're going to get separated. They basically, it sounds like all the things that you would find in one of these video rooms on the dark web.
Yeah.
Except without the sex stuff, because they can't do that. But they take these people and they carry them off and they dunk them in water and they chain them up and they put their heads in a cage and they make them put live cockroaches in their mouth. They have tarantulas go over them. They find out what their worst fear is, and they expose them to it. And you're supposed to try to last for 8 hours. And I saw people that were bloodied and puffed up and scraped and skinned and covered in who knows what.
I think that's a little extreme.
That is, yeah, but they say you don't want to come here, and they try to stress this to people, and they have these videos where you can see what they're doing, but people still go.
But I still stand by the fact that people want to feel alive. Those are people that, they get scared because they want to feel alive. Basically, that's what it comes down to, is that they need that rush.
All I need is to get in the car with you, and I get to experience the fear of death every day.
Oh, my goodness.
I just don't know why you have to drive like that.
Well, it's in Houston. We like to get places. nothing made me okay. No offense to California, but when we went out there to Las Vegas, we not Las Vegas. When we went
We
to
didn't drive there.
Yeah, Contact in the Desert. We took that trip the first year and went to L.A. because I said, well, we're already practically here. Let's go all the way to the ocean to see Malibu.
Yes.
And that was wonderful. We went to Point
I
Dume.
finally got to see the real ocean, not the dirty Galveston thing we have.
The thing is that we went through L.A. traffic, and I was like, oh, my God. Nothing makes you appreciate Houston traffic like L.A. traffic. That was like at a crawl still. I mean, at least in Houston, you've got like 12 lanes that you can drive and maneuver and get through. Yeah, 10, but still.
We were on I-10 in California.
Yeah, but our I-10 is not like that.
Our I-10. Well, there was a place under construction. They were adding more stuff. So.
What? Like a yellow stripe? I mean,
no. Remember, there was they were putting an overpass over 10 somewhere.
But anyway, the thing is that, I do have a lead foot. I admit it. But in Texas,
it's more than that. It's like you are in a video game and you must win. And if you can't win, you must punish everyone and teach them a lesson.
I'm not going to go any further than the fact that I know that I have a lead foot problem, and when people are in the fast lane, they need to get out of the way.
You also have a lead hand, and it goes on the horn. And
I was going to say, my hand is not lead because it rises pretty quick when somebody cuts me off.
I know, and you poor thing, you have the wimpiest car horn.
I have a Honda Fit for the audience if you're keeping score.
And I drive the Honda Element.
And Honda, if you like the advertisement, go ahead and send your check to Spaceboy Universe.
Because the Fit is not paid off.
Anyway, so what else beyond the fear?
I was just curious why people deliberately seek to be afraid.
Well, my answer is I think people seek the thrill of feeling alive. Now, you were going to also ask me.
Yes, there's a question. I keep asking you this every few months, years, Mike, and I don't feel like I get a definitive answer from you. And this goes back to the first story of the evening. Do you, Space Boy, because I don't call him that, believe in aliens as far as extraterrestrial beings not from this planet or evolved from this planet that don't live on this planet anymore? However you want to define them.
Okay. And so let me start by saying that I personally, to my knowledge, I've not been probed or been abducted that I know of.
Well, good for you.
I mean, although you do find weird scratches on me.
How does this answer the question?
Hold on. You want me to tell my side or not? I'll tell you.
This is court, and you're getting judged, and you need to hurry along, mister.
The thing is that there's plenty of evidence out there. You have, like, the Travis Walton story where he's abducted. You talk to the gentleman, and you see that he tells a story, and we're doing this live here. Hold on, give me a second here. She's got me all choked up here, ladies and gentlemen.
Had to hand off my sports drink.
Yes, thank you. All right. So there's plenty of evidence out there that shows that people have been abducted. When you talk to these people, they show that they generally feel like something legitimately. Thank you. That something has happened to them. And so, but going back to your question, you're asking me, do I believe in aliens? It's just such a tough question for me to answer because I'm kind of like I gotta touch and feel something, and I don't feel anything.
This is a great area for me.
Gray area, gray.
Not like grays as in aliens. Okay, first I want to say the same thing to you. Like, I never saw it. It never happened to me. There's not hard evidence. Sure, there's all this, but we live in a day of Photoshop and easily editable. Anyone can do CGI and video. But on the other hand, you could say, well, I was brought up in this religion and I believe this way. Well, you never saw your God or whoever it is you believe in. So basically, you're talking about faith. So you have faith that exists against lack of evidence or sketchy evidence.
Well, how did we make the jump from believing in aliens to having faith in God?
Well, I'm just saying that's something you could punch a hole in someone saying, I don't believe it because there's no evidence.
So basically, to use a biblical term, you're saying that I'm a doubting Thomas?
I don't know what you are because you won't tell me. You're saying you don't know what to think because there's evidence or there might not be evidence, or
I think
you don't want to lose some friends.
No, it's not even that. To be quite frank with you, I don't want. I can't make a decision on this. I mean, sure, there's evidence out there, and to basically trap myself within the parameters of a box, I'm limiting myself. Why would I want to limit myself? To say that that something is blue and be 100% behind it it may not be blue. It could be a different shade of blue. Have you thought of it that way? And so when it comes to believing in aliens, I'm not looking to be abducted anytime soon. That's for dang sure. And but at the same time, I would love to have some kind of an experience that would show me that is a possibility.
Well, I did forget one thing we were going to tell them. I think you want to or subconsciously do, because this is how I think that. One night, this had to have been in 2007. You were asleep, and I had woken up for whatever reason. You were asleep, and it was dark.
Listen to this. This is a pretty funny story, so listen.
Well, it's funny, but to me, it was like bone chilling at the time. You're asleep, and you kind of restless, and you started. You do that. He talks in his sleep, or he'll make noises. He doesn't snore. He had some kind of sinus surgery, but he makes up for it by doing everything else. So
I'm a pretty crazy sleeper.
He does just crazy stuff. So one night I'm like, oh God, what is he doing now? And then very clearly in the dark, in the quiet, I hear this. I'm gonna get close to the mic. Human. I'm like, what the? I should have slapped the crap out of him and woken him up. I think I was so freaked out. I think he was having a bad dream. And
the thing is, the next day when you told me that story, I do not recall having any kind of dreams, because usually when
that's probably a blessing for us both.
When I do have dreams that are pretty badly, I usually wake up and I have a blue light that I turn on just to illuminate the rooms.
The Doctor Who light?
Yeah, the Doctor Who light that just kind of...
He has a blue bulb, but he puts it in his TARDIS Doctor Who light, which I thought was funny.
So it illuminates the room. I mean, it's bad enough that I had to wear glasses, and they stole the prescription from the Hubble telescope. But I mean...
I'm worse than you.
So, yeah, I don't recall anything from that, waking up and having like an alien dream or a monster dream, or the extent of my dreams are, what really throw me in a tizzy is the alien dreams, and I dream of drowning and being eaten by a shark. That's like another dream I have that's fairly regular.
Oh, sweetie, that's so tame.
I
dream about the apocalypse.
I mean, I
nuclear war.
The impressions I get from your dreams is that you're like living a 9 Inch Nails video.
Yeah. It's edgy. I don't enjoy it either. It's pretty dark.
So you have my dreams that she pretty oftenly describes them as, okay, yeah, that's nice, dear. But my dreams are, I'm like Sarah Connor and a nuclear bomb has gone off and I turn to ash, and
yeah, it's kind of like that.
So I
also dream about heaven and hell, mostly hell. I had a dream about hell. I still remember it. It's pretty vivid. But
I really think that my imagination fuels my dreamscape.
Sure.
As far as what I dream. I mean, you may dream of things of that nature, of the apocalypse and things.
I don't want to.
But my dreams tend to be a little bit fantastic. a little bit extreme. Like I remember a dream I had once where I was in black and white, of all things. The dream was in black and white.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, it gets better. As I started to walk over this hill, everything was in color. It was like a line that once I crossed from this black and white,
You went into Oz.
it was something like that. It was, where a crossover from black and white to Technicolor.
That's cool, though.
It was one of the most fascinating dreams I ever had. And it's one of those ones that I can never forget because it was so fantastic. But once again, I think that my imagination plays into what's upstairs. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to constantly, and I think I overthink a lot of things.
Do you have nightmares or scary or disturbing dreams often, or you just get over it and move on? Or
no, I don't. I mean, I would love to say that it's from a night I might eat something bad or certain foods, and I've never kept track of what triggers off these dreams, like an alien dream, or I tell you what, it's usually I will possibly have a bad dream if I'm listening to something really good, like from Jimmy or from another show or something to that effect, and it really ties into I have to literally stop what I'm listening to and listen to something funny to break up.
I've noticed that if I fall asleep listening to something in the headphone, even if I'm asleep, it will come into my ear. I'm still hearing it, and it will influence the dream. And lately, I've been lucky. I've been very, very lucky. For several months, I've not been remembering my dreams. I think that can only be a blessing in my circumstances.
So we've walked this miracle mile, if you will, as far as, do I believe in aliens? So
we're never going to know. Just give up.
I think, okay, here you go. Yes, I do. And the reason being is it's a big universe out there. And to say that we're alone, we're the only people on this planet, in this universe alone, is ridiculous to say that there's not intelligent life out there. There has to be. Now, whether they're next door to us in a parallel universe or across a great spatial wide area in like Zeta Reticuli, I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't have those answers. I can only hope that our journey as we go along, maybe with the Spaceboy universe, we'll tap into people we'll talk to, guests that come on, or even our audience.
I'd like to talk to another person again someday.
Yeah. That would be nice.
That would be really nice.
So.
Like now would be good.
Well, if somebody would like to call in.
713-701-5214. I know that better than my own cell phone number.
713-701-5214.
Somebody says you need to fix the sound.
Okay. What's the sound? Let us know what the sound is all about.
What is the sound issue? Please.
Yeah, so there's a little delay there, so let us know.
Well, I don't know.
What else you got to say before we start heading down to the home stretch to wrap this up?
Let me see if I missed anything.
Is there any other alien stories that you know of?
Well, I tried to find these two videos. They were on YouTube a while back. I don't know what they're called, but one of them I think you and I watched together at the time, and I can't remember when this was. Basically, this couple or two people had set up a camera in their bedroom.
Oh, yeah.
And it was sort of facing down at the bed, but mostly it was trying to get their hallway because they said they were being visited and somebody or something was coming down the hallway. Mm-hmm. And even if this is a fake video, it's creepy. Yeah, it's good, creepy.
The sounds and all that were definitely creepy.
I tried to put in all the parameters I could find, and I couldn't find this exact video. And then another one, I think.
Well, before you move on, I do know it comes from the show Fact or Fiction investigated that on Sci-Fi, and so fact or fiction did an investigation, and I think they were outside and they were having technical difficulties with their equipment, and it was an all right show.
Don't recall that.
You know how I have some feelings about that show.
You have feelings about anything on the Sci-Fi Channel?
Well,
because they broke your heart.
They did. They stomped on it and kicked it to the curb, and
which is why we don't have cable anymore.
And so But anyway, so that was that show. What was the other?
And the other one, it looks as if the people had set up maybe a night vision camera, and again, it's in their bedroom, and the video I think went on for quite a while, and they were capturing lights tracing across their room. They were capturing just the strangest noises I'd ever heard, sort of strange electrical interference and garbled sounds, and it was just, they said this is when they come and visit and try to take them. And I was like, okay, that's creepy. And this is the point I wanted to make about that, your story and my story. I don't necessarily believe it, and I hope that doesn't alienate any of our listener friends. But I like stories, and they don't have to be true for me to like them. And these were good stories. And that's why I picked the one I did, and I guess you picked the one you did.
Yeah, I mean, they are good stories, and it doesn't have to be true to enjoy the stories. Now, there is something that I do want to point out. You know, I'm a big fan of Jim Mars.
Yes.
And something that Jim Mars always says, I guess towards the end of his conversations with just about anybody he interviews with, is that, hey, don't take my word for it. Go out there and investigate the truth for yourself. And truer words can't be wrung out loud enough than that.
Yeah, go. If I could find this stuff this easy, you know, and get the book about Skinwalker Ranch by Knapp and Kelleher, easily available. It's a good read. It'll take you a little while, but it'll keep you up at night.
I think it's good to have a skeptic heart, but also to have the ability to ask the question why and how. We should never outgrow the fact of asking the questions that make us wonder about the universe. So
question everything, rebel often.
Yes, indeed. So, Surlana, anything else?
Mark Torana says right channel cut out, and somebody said left channel cut out. But it looks like we're pretty much beating a dead horse at this point. So,
well, ladies and gentlemen, I think
no one's going to call, so no one wants the prize.
Nobody wants the prize that we were going to offer tonight. It's kind of sad.
Well, it is Halloween night, and people are out probably doing more interesting things.
Well, I mean,
that people do.
Let's give it up for the people that are watching tonight.
Hey, the people that were engaging in YouTube chat, and I have seen some tweets, and that shocked me. I really didn't think anybody would be here.
Well, it looks like Danny says he's trying to call. Danny, are you trying to call 713-701-5214? Let's see here.
4?
He's saying wait.
Okay, we wait. I mean, it's not like we got anywhere to go. We're already home.
Yeah, it's not
or
like
anything to do.
We don't.
There's cake in the fridge that I am trying. I think I'm just going to throw it away. It's evil. I'm trying to avoid it.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the thing here, and I wonder why it's, nobody is calling. Now, Danny, you remember you got to dial 1 if it's a long distance number. I guess he would have to, wouldn't he? 1713.
I know nothing about dialing long distances.
I don't know why.
Call people.
Why we've been having these technical difficulties, especially the left and right channel thing.
That I don't know.
I've seen that come up when the post when I'm trying to, get the
now
upload.
I'm over here. Now I'm over here, and now I'm in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, no calls.
Oh well.
Let me try one more thing here.
I'll just go cry into our ice cream that I got yesterday.
How was that ice cream, by the way?
Holy cow. Not to product placement drop, but Bluebell is back. And we're not that far from Brenham, Texas, where it originates. And I got the Great Divide Bluebell, which is half vanilla, half chocolate. And I plopped that down. I took a sugar cone and beat it and crumbled it, put it over the ice cream, and then I took Hershey's double fudge over that, and then I took whipped cream from a can over that, and then over that I put some mini M&Ms, and it was just like I should have passed out.
I think Leanne's trying to show off to you. Oh, wait, caller.
Caller.
Caller, you are on the air. Who's calling?
Hey, this is Danny.
Hey, Danny! How are you this evening?
I had to call you on the landline because I tried putting it in, and I don't have any Skype credits right now. And it's telling me I have to have Skype credits. So
oh, really? Well,
that's why the call wouldn't get through.
Yeah, I guess
How y'all doing?
We're doing pretty good. I guess anybody can call from a landline
or
if you
cell
have
phone.
Skype. We just say Skype because that's where we're running the hot board on. And so, but yeah, we're doing great. How are you?
Doing good.
Good.
Good to finally talk to you guys.
Yes, it's about time.
Yay!
Yep.
So, what'd you think of the show tonight?
Thought it was a great show. Awesome topic.
Personal stories.
Oh yeah. Oh, that.
Dan
yeah,
Cortez.
Dan Cortez.
That was a sweet story. Even the fact that you were packing, that was cool.
Yeah,
too.
I'm
Like
still
that.
packing all the time. And it's going to be legal in January.
Danny, I didn't tell the story that she's given me a free pass to leave at any time. Well, I can't say it's free pass, but she said you can leave at any time, but just know that if you're going out that door, I've got a bullet with each one of your knees with its name on it. So, I think she's a keeper.
Yeah, I think so. I would tear that pass up if I were you.
Danny, do you have any
Yourself.
creepy
Great
stories or encounters or anything ever happened to you? You've seen anything?
Well, yeah, that's weird. I have never seen any UFOs. No real ghost experiences. I had something happen when I was younger, but I was going to talk to you about the fear because I've always been into horror movies and just like that. I don't know if you're familiar with that magazine, Fangoria.
Oh yeah, that's been around a while.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. I was into that when I was real young, and I'm not for any sick reasons. I just really enjoyed it. I worked at a video store, and my best friend and I, we watched a lot of, like Friday the 13th, the originals, the Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and stuff like that. I've always been into that. I'm not into the going into haunted houses and stuff like that. I don't really care for that kind of scare, but I do like being scared on a ride or trying to get scared on a ride.
Do you get a rush off the fear, or?
Yeah, I get a rush off the ride. Yeah, for sure.
So, in other words, what you're saying is it kind of makes you alive, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And my next, what I've been wanting to do for a while is I want to skydive. That's my next goal.
Oh, skydive. Oh.
Well, that should be such a rush you should pass out.
I've often thought about doing that myself, but I just don't. I don't think I can bring myself to the ledge just yet. I can imagine maybe one day I'll psych myself out. But skydiving, we got this new thing in town. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called iSky. Is it where you can basically float?
Or sky, yeah.
It's got a thing. It's like a big tube where you get in, and it gives the feeling that you're.
It's less than a mile from where we live.
Yeah, where they got these winds that blow you up to where you're floating in this tube.
It's simulated skydiving.
Yeah, it's simulated skydiving.
That'd be the only way I would do it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's pretty cool, but I think it's like $70 for 3 trips into the tube, and so a little expensive. But I guess that would be a great thing to start with, So, so skydiving, that sounds like quite the leap, so to speak.
Mm. Yeah, that first jump would. I think that would make a memory that I would not soon forget.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Danny, do me a favor. We want to reward you for calling in. Our prize tonight is a Space Invaders game that we're giving out, and we'd like to send you the game. So if you can email Surlana at spaceboyuniverse.com. It's Surlana at spaceboyuniverse.com.
I'll put it in the chat just in case.
And if you'll send her your address, contact information, we'll get it out to the mail, and it just as a thank you for tuning into the show tonight.
I bumped the mic.
Well, I appreciate that, guys. You certainly didn't have to do that to get me to call in.
No,
we're trying to bribe people.
You know,
with
the Spaceboy universe, you know, it's such a big universe. I ride my ship out there into the universe, and I bring back different things, and this is one of the different things I've brought back, and hopefully in the future we're working to get some new sponsors for the show, and if that pans out, then we'll have some more space goodies that will be called, you know, space swag to give out, and
space swag.
Yeah, space swag is the thing.
Space Invaders was one of my favorite games.
Yeah, you sound like you're about my age.
Back in the day, we're about the same age.
Yeah, you're an old school gamer.
I'm OG, original gangster.
I'm DOS gamer.
There's a lot of people I haven't talked to that are in chat. I haven't talked to you guys in a while. It's good to catch up with Gene and a few other people in there.
Well, you shouldn't be a stranger anymore, because you know you're amongst a great community of followers of the Spaceboy universe and beyond. So you know you need to stay in touch and hopefully grow with the show, because like I said, you've known me as far as the music is concerned, but this is a new direction, and we're going. Sky's the limit on this. You know, we're shooting for the moon, but if we don't make the moon, we'll be amongst the stars, so to speak.
Or we'll die in the vacuum of space.
I know I'm on the ground floor here. You guys are going places. You know, I know that for sure.
Well, Danny, we appreciate you calling, and like I said, join us next week. We're going to be live again, and we expect you to call in and be a part of the chat session, and like I said, make sure to get your information to Surlana, and we'll get you that call-in gift, the Space Swag, to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'll get you my Skype name, and that way I'll be a lot more clear, because I have a lot higher quality studio gear here.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, because Skype is wonderful. Yeah, so call. Don't be a stranger, and keep chatting with me. I'd love to catch up with you. Okay.
Absolutely. Well, it's great talking to you. Thanks for.
So glad you called.
Invaders, and it was a great show. And happy Halloween.
Oh, you too, my friend, and we'll talk soon.
We'll talk soon. All right. Take care. Good night.
Bye. All right.
I cannot post anything with a URL in YouTube chat window.
YouTube just doesn't like you. So, Surlana, it's. What were you going to say?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Nothing. I'm done.
So we're done. I want to thank everybody for listening tonight. It's been a great show, and it's not a show without
a sober show
without you. Yeah, the listener and the watcher. Eventually, this will go up to our SoundCloud account where all our podcasts go. So if you want to hear the repeat, it'll be there. And we haven't really decided for next week's show
tweet that now.
What we're going to do. So, just look for the social media blast that we usually do throughout the week, proclaiming that this is our topic and deal with it. And so... Yeah,
we will be, annihilating social media when we figure it out.
So, on that... Or...
suggest something.
Yes, you can always suggest
something.
Like contact at Spaceboy Music, SpaceboyUniverse.com. We're out of here. Bye-bye, everyone.
This has been Spaceboy Universe Podcast, produced by Spaceboy and Surlana. Check out Spaceboy on the internet at SpaceboyMusic.com.